Now, to make it really easy for you to follow along with this tutorial and add Unity friends to your own project, I've included a sample project that you can download from the very first link in the description. This will take you straight to my Discord under the resources section, and you'll find this Unity friends complete course sample project here. If you can't find it, you can just search for it up here. And inside of this post, there's this download that you can download. It's a zip file. You can extract it, and inside there's a Unity project that you can open. All the code in this Unity project you can use completely in your own project, and this will just make it really easy for you to follow along with this tutorial, as well as adding Unity friends to your own project. So we'll start by setting up Unity friends in our Unity dashboard. Now, this is a very straightforward tutorial, and it's on the Unity dashboard website. So what you just want to do is when you head over to your project inside the Unity dashboard, go ahead to the bottom here and select multiplayer. Now, under multiplayer, you will find the Unity friends beta option, and we just want to select setup friends. Now, this shows you how to link your project. You should follow this tutorial if you don't have it linked already. It's pretty straightforward. I'll hit next because mine is already linked, and then it shows you how to install the Unity friends package. You should also install this if it's not already installed in your project. I'll just go ahead and hit next. Then finally, the most important step is we want to turn Unity friends on. So of course this activates the Unity friends API, and once you hit finish, it goes ahead and loads for a while as it sets up your project to use Unity friends. Once we're ready with this, we're ready to jump into the Unity editor and start editing some code. Once we're done with that, let's take a look at the general build up of the project. You can download this example project from the link in the description, as you might need to use it as you build this Unity friends API to work with your own project. So in the project, all we have is a simple main scene. This is the main scene that we'll be working with. And if you open it up, you will find a setup that looks generally like this, with a game object named UI, and this will be the main object that controls our UI. Importantly, on this object is the Friends UI Manager script that is the main manager for our UI as we deal with the Friends API. There's also a Friends Manager game object that has a Friends Manager script attached. And now that we've seen both of those, let's take a look at what they look like in our code editor. So the Friends UI Manager is simply an Scott script that manages the UI for the Friends Manager, and it communicates with the Friends Manager using mainly callbacks such as this. At the beginning of the game, the Friends UI Manager subscribes to events from the Friends Manager, just so it can organize the UI to make it appear the way it should at different stages of the project. Now that we have a good general understanding of these scripts, let's go ahead and start with the first thing we need to do when using Unity friends, and that's sign in and get information that we'll need to give to our friends for them to be able to send us friend requests. So to do that, at the start of the Friends Manager, in the start function, if the use friends boolean is set to true, it goes ahead and initializes friends. So what it does here is it initializes the Unity services and signs in anonymously with the authentication service. Once we're done with that, we can go ahead and initialize friends, and we save a list of all our friends here at the bottom of the script. Now inside our project, we have a sign in button that has an input field for our username just above it. So Unity friends assigns a username to the player that's quite similar to Discord usernames. The username that you assign is appended with a random number at the end, and we can use this while sending friend requests. So we just want to make sure that we control this. Now attached to the sign in button is this player sign in script. What it does is it sets our sign in UI to false and updates the player username using the update player name async function here. Once that information is updated, it goes ahead and logs it to the console, and importantly, it calls the on user sign in callback, which we know is used by the Friends UI Manager. The Friends UI Manager receives this callback and goes ahead and updates this information so that it shows on our screen. So back in Unity, let's take a look at how this looks. So just go ahead and enter play mode, and importantly, you want to look at the console quite a bit as you deal with this, and you can see it's gone ahead and initialized the wire, which is what it uses to communicate with Unity APIs in general. And I'll go ahead and input a random username in here. Once I click sign in, down here you can see it's logged a bit of information about the player, and this is being called from this line of code right here. And because it's called the on user sign in here, we go ahead and see information about the player on the screen. So we have the player's username, we have his user ID, and we have his player info, which is generally default because we're not using a third-party API to deal with Unity authentication here. Once we have this information, we can now move on to the next step of setting up our friend requests. Now, before I jump into the code, I'll show you exactly how this friend system is working. So over here, we have two clients. I'll go ahead and enter my username on this one client, and I'll enter a different username on this other client. You can see that both clients currently display information about their users, but the important data here is this user ID. I have a copy button right next to the user ID that puts it on my clipboard once I click it. I'll switch to the second client, or the first client in this case, and I'll just paste my user ID there, and then I'll select send friend request. You can see on the second client here that a friend request has popped up. Most importantly, this friend request includes the user ID of the user who just sent the friend request, and you can see that it matches with the one that we have over here on the left side. Once I hit accept, you can see that both clients lists update with information about the friends that they have, and that both clients have each other's IDs in their friends list. So this client has this user's ID and this client has this other user's ID. Now it does take a little bit of code to set this up, but let's take a look at exactly what that code looks like. Now inside the friends manager script right here where we initialize our friends system, one of the final functions that we call here is the subscribe to friends event callbacks. Now this has a list of events that you can see it subscribes to, so it gets a callback when a relationship is added, when a message is received, a presence is updated, and when a relationship is deleted. Now we'll make use of this a bit later on while dealing with this, but the very first thing that we need to be able to do is to send a user a friend request, and we do that using this function over here. So this one takes in a member ID, and all it does is it calls the friend service.instance.addFriend async and enters the member ID. If we await this object over here, we can then log information about it that will let us know what the new relationship status is. Now, if we had already received a friend request from this user, the relationship status here will be of type friends. If we have not yet received a friend request from this user, that means we're sending the initial friend request. We'll receive a relationship type here of type friend request. Now once we call this function, the user will receive a notification letting him know that he has received a friend request and from which user it is. And this is where our subscribe to friends event callbacks become important, because one of them is this relationship added callback over here. So when we receive this, all we do is we run our refresh lists function. If we take a look at that, you can see that it clearly just refreshes the friends, and also most importantly here refreshes the requests. And inside of requests, what we're doing is we have an object, we have a list here at the bottom of the script that includes all our requests as player profiles. And if we head back to the top here, you can see that we're just clearing that list. Then we create a new list of relationships here, and we use the friend service.instance.incoming friend request to get the list of all friend requests that we are receiving. At this point, it's important to filter your list. So you can see I'm just adding some filters here. Sometimes you might want to filter things like users that are blocked, most importantly. So you can see I'm just filtering that here. And I do that very simply by just getting a list of all blocked users and running a function here to create a new list that only picks out users that are not included in the blocked users, because you definitely don't want to be receiving friend requests from blocked users. Now we run through all these requests and create new player profiles for them. And if you're wondering what a player profile is, it's just a very simple script that just includes properties for the player's name and the ID. And you can see here that what we're doing is we're converting all these relationships inside of request. Yes, we're converting all of these to new player profiles because we generally use player profiles in our games. We prefer not to deal with relationships. So a new player profile is created and the name of the profile is saved, as well as the member ID. And we'll use this a lot later. Now, once we're done with this, we call the onRequestRefresh. And this is just a callback function that can be used by any script really to subscribe to the friends manager when the friends manager updates the request. Now, this is very important in actually displaying the requests. As you saw in the code earlier, we actually show the requests in a list, and next to every request we have an accept button. Let's take a look at how we do that though. So this is actually done here in the friends UI manager. You can see in the start function what we have is we subscribe to the onRequestRefresh callback from the friends manager, and we call this onRequestRefresh function. Now all that this does really, it just removes all the other former requests that we have. So basically we're just cleaning up these requests, and then we spawn in a new game object to display every single request. So you can see here we instantiate a new game object, we make it a parent of the previous prefab. I'll show you something funny about these prefabs and the way that I create them in Unity. Here we make sure to set these as active, and we set the data. Now you can see here we're just saying new request item.set data in order to set data. In actual sense, this set data function uses the user ID display text here to just display the ID of the user. We also have an accept button, and we set its callback here. It's on click callback. We add a listener to that, which invokes the on accept function that is passed in here. Now we need to take a little while to look at this on request accept function here. What it does is it tells the friend manager to accept the request from this particular ID. So this is a very nice way of handling data. We have the data stored on the request object, and the request object will call a function to let the UI manager know that the player has accepted that particular friend request, and then the UI manager can let the friends manager know afterwards. So as you can see, once we're done with that, we save all these UI items to the request UIs list, and that's important obviously because the next time we refresh the UIs, we also want to get rid of everything else that we had already displayed. Now, like I had said, I'd show you something special about the way that I'm dealing with prefabs here. So you could tell earlier in the friends UI manager that I had a prefab over here, this requests prefab, and this is the prefab that's spawned to display every single friend request that our user gets. As you can see, it's just a simple game object that has basically 3 parts to it. It just has the user ID label, the user ID here, and also the accept button, but it's not really a prefab. This is actually a game object, and I do this because it makes it a lot easier for me to access information about it. You can see here when we instantiate this prefab, we also make use of its transform.parent, so we instantiate it under its previous parent, and that creates a nice little effect where all new objects will be instantiated exactly under this same parent. So the result of handling things in that way is, once I come in here and I go ahead and send this second client a friend request, you can see that once I do that, a new user ID with the information of the incoming friend request is actually created, and next to it is this accept button. So let's take a look at how that's handled. So the request button over here has a listener added to it, which calls the on accept function over here. And the on accept callback is actually a callback that's passed to it by the friends UI manager. So once this is called, it tells the friends manager to accept the request from the user. And you can see in the friends manager, all we're doing is we're awaiting for a new relationship from the friend service, and this is the add friend async function we're calling here. Now it's actually quite cool that both of these functions are right next to each other, because you should be able to see that these methods for both sending and accepting a request are exactly the same. Like I said, the only difference between these two methods is that the result they return actually differs. Here, when you're sending a friend request, the relationship type, if you await for it and log it, will be of type friend request. If you are accepting a request, the relationship type that you get back will be of type friend. So that's just the minor difference between those two. But as you can see, once we're done with that, once we're done accepting a new friend request, we go ahead and refresh our lists. And luckily enough, when we refresh our list, we also refresh our friends. Refresh friends function works very, very similar to the refresh request function. And again, it's quite convenient that the two are right next to each other. But you can see we start by caching a list of the friends, and when we refresh that list, we actually clear it, and we save this list as a list of iRead-only list of type relationship. And we just get this by calling the friend service.instance.friends. And then now this is the point where you would actually apply some filters. I'm quite unsure at the moment what type of filters you want to apply to your friends, but you know, just in case you want to apply some filters, this is actually where you would do it. In the case of friend requests like we saw here, you can actually filter out blocked members. But in the case of friends, I'm actually unsure what you would want to filter out at the moment. This really does depend on your own game. But once we're done with that, again, we go through all the relationships that we've received. We make sure to convert them to player profiles, as our UI uses only player profiles. And we invoke the on friends refresh callback over here. Now you can see in the friends UI manager, once again, we subscribe to this callback and we run exactly the same function as the on request refresh here, except that in this case we're actually spawning a UI to display the friends, and you know, we just use the player profiles in a pretty similar way over here. And this gives us the friends UI in, a pretty cool way. You can actually send friend requests at this point. You can actually receive friend requests from your friend. And you can see here, once I accept this friend request, we get this list on both of our users. Well, now that we know exactly how to send friend requests, accept friend requests, we can actually add friends. But next, what we're going to take a look at is how you can actually delete friends. And this is actually quite simple. So what we have here is our two friends again. And you can just see I've sent a friend request from the client on the left to the client on the right. And I'll just have the client on the right accept it. In this version though, you can see we have a delete button right next to a friend in the list here. And if I go ahead and hit delete, you can see that the friend disappears from both clients. Now, how this is being done in code is actually quite simple. The function itself for deleting a friend is ridiculously simple. You can just see here, it's just you just have to await the friend service.instance and the delete friend async function, passing the member ID. And once that's done running, you can see that in here we're just refreshing the list. Now this is important because you do want to refresh the list and get the new list of friends that you have after you've deleted some, right? Inside the friends UI manager though, to allow for this, we are now passing in an onDelete function here. This onDelete function is being passed in as a callback for every friend item. And you can see this function just calls the friend manager and tells it to delete the friend. It calls the function we just looked at earlier. Now, what's happening in here is that we have a friends object here that's just setting a listener to the delete button that you click when you're deleting a friend. And once you click that button, it calls the onDelete callback here and passes in the member ID of the friend that you actually want to delete. Now, more importantly here, if you go back to the friends manager, we do receive a callback for this. So when a friend is deleted, we receive a callback here for the friend service.instance.on relationship deleted here. And we do want to subscribe this, and when this is called, we want to just refresh our list. This makes sure that we refresh the lists even on the client that did not delete the friend request, because when a remote client deletes you as one of their friends, you actually want to know about that. So, calling this refresh list here will make sure that the other client gets to know that a friendship was actually deleted. Or in this case, it's just a relationship, but it's pretty much the same thing. And yeah, once we're done with that, we actually now know how to send friend requests, receive them, accept them, and we know how to delete friends. So next we're going to be taking a look at how to block certain members. Alright, so here we have a very interesting situation. We've got two friends, and I'm just going to copy the code from here and use this client to send him a friend request. On the other side, he's just going to accept the friend request, and now they're friends on both clients. You can sort of see that, they're friends. Now, what if this guy goes ahead and throws a, let's say, racist joke, perhaps, to this guy, right? So this guy might feel like, well, we gotta block this, right? It's not just about deleting this friendship over here, right? It's more about blocking. So if they hit block, what you can see now is that the user that's been blocked actually doesn't know that he's been blocked. It doesn't show him any notification or anything, and we'll come back to that in a short while because some tricky stuff could happen there. But the user that has actually blocked now no longer has this user's ID under his friends. Instead, this user's ID has gone under blocks. Now there's an option to delete, but before we do that, what I want to show you is if I go ahead and simply just delete this friendship on the other user, you can see this user doesn't even know that the friendship was deleted. And if I copy the ID again, actually the ID is already here, but if I send in a second friend request, you can tell that this user actually does not see that friend request. And this is a bit of internal code. This is not done by the Friends API on its own. This is something that I'm doing myself, because if I maximize this user for a minute and I go in and just check the hierarchy, inside my Friends manager, I have this option here that says filter blocks from requests. Now it's hard for me to explain exactly why I named it like this, but basically if this item is checked, users that have been blocked will not be shown under friend request. And if I just disable this and I refresh this list, you can actually see that the friend request still comes through, right? But for the sake of your user experience, very often you don't actually want to show friends that they've already blocked, you know what I mean? And so that's exactly what we're going to deal with. We're going to talk about how do you block a user, how do you remove a block, and also how do you refresh the list of blocked items so that you can display them like this. Now, the very first thing is blocking a user, and as with all things in the Unity Friend service, this is a very, very simple function. All you want to do is you want to call await friend service.instance.block async and pass in a member ID. Now this actually does return a relationship, and this relationship can be used to log the state of the block. So I'll show you what this looks like in the Unity editor, because I do have a debug.log here. So you can see right here in my Unity editor, it says blocked user, it shows the user ID, and then it says status block. So that gives us a little bit more information about, what's our status. But usually, of course, if you block a user, their status is going to be blocked anyway. But then how do you unblock a user? So again, this is actually quite simple. Down here, you can see this is the function I'm using to do that. It's just friend service.instance.delete block async. Once again, it takes in a member ID, and this one does not return a relationship. And so I just said unblocked user, and then I passed that in. Now, of course, once you're done blocking, you want to see the list of blocked users. And this is where getting a list of blocked users comes in important. So down here, we have a function void refresh blocks. And the only important part is actually this here. So the friend service.instance.blocks. This holds a list in terms of relationships. This holds a list of all users that you've blocked on your local machine, not users that have blocked you, because as you saw at the beginning, the blocked client actually doesn't know it's been blocked. So this holds a list of all users that you've blocked on your local machine. This is actually a very good way to handle things, because usually you don't want users that have been blocked to know that they've been blocked. There's ways that they could find out, but at the very least, you don't want to show them a list or a notification saying, oh, you've been blocked, right? So it's actually a very good way to do it. And then I just refresh a list of blocked items, and that's just about it. Now, the rest of the code from here on is actually quite obvious. The only really important lines of code that you need to know here is this one to receive a list of blocked users, this one over here to add a new blocked user, and this one over here to delete blocked users. So from there on, all I do is I go ahead and refresh the lists. Of course, once I refresh the list, we get a callback here, the onBlocks refresh callbacks. And this is subscribed to by the friend's UI manager. So when a new friend is blocked, we create a bunch of UI to display it. And that's this UI that you see over here that shows us that we have a blocked user. Now, really cool is the fact that once I unblock this user, so if I delete the block, he goes back to whichever list he belongs in. Now, in this case, I had actually deleted the friendship on my other client here, and I sent in a new friend request. So he goes back into the request, but you could see if I just accept this friend request, he now goes into friends. And if I block him, he's blocked, but once I delete the block, he goes back into friends, right? Because nobody had deleted the friend relationship. We had just blocked the friend. So we can go ahead and unblock him and get back to normal. Now, what I do want to show you finally is the filter blocks from request, this particular Boolean that I have here. And I did set it up to show with a tooltip, but I don't know exactly how Unity handles those things. Alright, so in Unity, tooltips only show up outside the editor mode. I did not know that, but you can see it just says if select, we will not show blocked users among friends even if they are friends. And this also means we won't show them among friend requests even if they have sent a request. I'll update that in real time while we work here. So over here we have if selected, we will not show blocked users among requests even if they have sent new requests. And this is important, obviously. You don't want somebody to be able to receive friend requests from users they block. But how am I doing this exactly? So earlier in this video we talked about filters, right? And I believe in filters. I generally believe every single game should be filtering their lists in a custom way. The friend service is a very open service. Your game should not work exactly like this, but you should apply certain filters to every single list that you get. And you could see here one of the filters that I apply is if we have selected to filter blocks from requests. Yes, if we have, we then get a list of all blocks. And we just remove any relationship where the block ID, the block member ID over here, is equal to the request member ID. So basically this means this is the request from a blocked user. Just remove that, then convert our requests back to a list, and then we can use that new filtered list. And so that's exactly how filters can come in handy. And this is how to deal with blocks in the Unity Friends API.